Now, last time I spoke to you, I think it was in the tent down in Westminster, and you were still a Tory. So how are you enjoying life as a Lib Dem?
Liberated.
Liberated?
I feel incredibly liberated. To be honest, there's no point being an outcast in your own party. Brexit isn't working. Boris Johnson said, do or die. He was going to deliver it by the 31st of October. He said this to win the Tory leadership contest. It was never deliverable. Everybody knew that, but it's the way he got to become Prime Minister, and he's failed. And I am free and liberated to be in a party where I can call these things out as I see them.
Yes. You, of course, were running in that same leadership election against Boris Johnson for a brief period. What was your slogan as far as Brexit was concerned then?
I said, ever since I resigned from Theresa May's government back in November last year, that the only way to break the Brexit deadlock is to go back to the people for a final say. And the Conservative Party didn't want to hear that because it wants a hard Brexit or a no-deal Brexit. But I think that I've been proven right, that in the end, whether it's an election or a referendum we're going for, we are having to go back to the people to resolve the deadlock. It's been quite clear for a long time that is the only way to resolve this impasse.
Well, you've said that the Tories want a hard Brexit or a no-deal Brexit, but they've actually produced a deal from Brussels, which is not particularly a hard Brexit and is certainly not a no-deal Brexit.
Well, if you say it's not a hard Brexit, then I don't know what you mean by a hard Brexit.
Well, what do you mean by a hard Brexit?
Well, it will be a hard Brexit because it is given that it envisages the loosest possible relationship with the EU.
How do you know what it means if you haven't studied it yet?
I've read the political declaration, which is the blueprint for it.
Yeah, but aren't you arguing that you need more time to scrutinise it?
No, having read something is not the same as scrutinising it,
isn't it?
For parliamentary purposes. Remember that this is the first time a withdrawal agreement has actually been put before the House of Commons.
Yes.
What we've been discussing for the last 3 years are different ways of doing Brexit. But this is the legal text. It's a bit like, you've been looking at a house and looking at the estate agent's brochures, and then finally you get the sale agreement. That's the time to actually work out, whether there's subsidence.
I don't know how many houses you've bought in your life, Sam, but I don't know why people keep using that as an analogy, because I don't think it's the right analogy at all. I mean, you've effectively moved house next door to a place which doesn't have any windows in it that you used to look out upon your street, because you've now signed up to a party which doesn't accept that Brexit should happen and which would actually revoke Article 50 should it become in power. So you've lost all your credibility with your electors who elected you on the promise that you would honour the result of the referendum, and you're not doing it.
Not at all.
How is any of that wrong?
It is wrong because what was promised in that manifesto in 2017 was that we would come out with a comprehensive free trade agreement, that we will leave the EU in an orderly fashion, and that we would secure the future as well.
Well, David Cameron said, Sam, that if you could not leave within 2 years and negotiate you leaving in an orderly fashion, you would leave with no deal under WTO rules. That was in the Conservative manifesto.
No. The Conservative manifesto in 2017 said we would leave in a secure and orderly fashion, and we will negotiate a comprehensive free trade agreement. Now, that manifesto, you've got to remember, did not win us the election.
Well, you did, actually.
It didn't. No, we
you didn't lose the election, did you?
We didn't win.
No, of course you won. You had the most votes in the most MPs. Therefore, you won.
We lost our majority. That's why we had to go into coalition with the DUP. But there's another aspect to this. It is a fool who, when confronted with evidence, does not check with the people to say, now that we know what is negotiable, let us know whether this is still what you want.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this, Sam. Why don't you check with the people of your constituency whether they still want you as their MP by having a by-election?
Well, there will be an election soon enough. And if you're talking about a by-election, there are now something like 20 or 30 MPs in the House of Commons who are not with the party they started with for a number of reasons. I left the Conservative Party, remember, because Boris Johnson withdrew the whip. And in withdrawing the whip, I was partyless. And I had a right at that point to choose a party to sit with.
Yes, you do. But so do the people. The people who elected you have a right to have an opportunity to find out. Well, excuse me. There's no point just talking over each other, Sam. The people who elected you also have a right to tell you whether they agree with your choice or whether they wish to select somebody else to represent them.
Of course, and there will be a general election.
So you're going to vote. So you're going to say yes to a general election then?
No. The point I was making is let me finish the point because the nuance is important. Luciana Berger also sits with the Lib Dems because of anti-Semitism in the Labour Party. So there are lots of MPs who have either independents or have changed their party.
Yeah, but the reason for changing, Sam, does not preclude you from having a by-election.
Yes, can I please finish the sentence?
Please.
Right. So what you will have, if you're going to have lots of by-elections at this critical time, you're going to have something like 30 by-elections around the country because the MPs did not start with a party they say, well, I don't believe that having 30 by-elections around the country today is the best use of our time. There will be a general election soon enough. But as far as
when will you be voting for a general election?
As far as the general election on Monday is concerned, there is one simple thing. Let us know what the extension is. Because Boris Johnson is claiming he wants a general election, but at the same time we know he's lobbying the French to veto the extension that will allow that election to happen. So if he seriously wants an election, let us know what the extension is, implement the extension, and let's have a proper discussion. Point number one.
Well, hang on. No, you want a proper discussion, right? He is offering you a proper discussion as long as you agree to having an election, which you say you want to have.
But he's got to secure the extension. And the reason why that is important is because there is no trust with Boris Johnson's government. And if the extension...
Well, there's no trust from the Lib Dems. That doesn't mean there's no trust.
You might not have trust. Millions of people in the country recognize that the Liberal Democrats are the ones who are speaking truth about this.
Oh, really?
Boris has failed.
How many seats do you think you're going to get in the election?
Boris has failed.
No, he hasn't. He's succeeded. He's completely succeeded in getting a new deal. Excuse me. You said that he wouldn't get a deal in Brussels. Everybody said it wouldn't happen. He managed to do that. He's presented you with the opportunity to have an election several times. You have completely refused to do so. He's also asking you to scrutinise the bill, and you're refusing to do that as well. You're just refusing to do anything.
You are living in a parallel universe.
Yes, I am. I'm living in the real world, and you're not.
The deal he has got was the EU's opening offer, which Theresa May, who Boris Johnson criticised as weak, rejected. It is a worse deal for the UK than Theresa May's offer. Point number one. Point number two.
You don't want to leave the European Union, though, do you?
Sorry?
You don't want to leave the European Union.
I actually haven't thought about him being a minister, that the best deal for us is the deal that we currently have.
So when you were elected as a Tory MP, you didn't actually agree with Tory policy?
No, I did. But as a minister,
no, you didn't.
I looked at it. No, I did. Look. What you do as a minister is you look at the evidence and you check in and say, look, we're about to do this thing. It is very clear that every deal we were looking at did nothing to deliver what was promised in the referendum campaign. But you've still got people going ahead because they are too embarrassed to say the truth to the electorate, that we cannot deliver what we promised you. So let's pretend it is Parliament's fault. Let's distract and blame Remain.
Well, whose fault is it then?
Blame the EU.
Whose fault is it?
That's what Boris is doing. And I'm saying that we've got to be honest with the people that we cannot deliver what was promised. But if they still want to go ahead, fine. But let's give them a shot at it.
So what would you have on the referendum ballot? What would be the question?
I'll be happy to have Boris Johnson's deal and Remain as questions on that ballot paper.
Really? And what makes you think that's in any way fair? Because it would mean, effectively, that if you want to leave the European Union, you have to win a referendum twice. And if you don't, you only have to win it once. That's not fair.
We now know what is... Well, Farage doesn't agree with Boris Johnson's deal. Boris Johnson doesn't agree with Theresa May's deal. So tell me which of those is leave.
Well, the one that you leave with is the one that's on the table. Surely, Sam, the fact is that Boris Johnson has obtained a deal. You don't like the deal, but you now belong to a party that doesn't want to leave the European Union. So, frankly, you shouldn't even have any say anyway.
Well, you invited me onto your show. Right?
I don't mean you shouldn't have any say in the world. I mean, you shouldn't have any say in how we leave because you don't want to leave.
No, what I'm saying is Brexiteers do not agree with themselves on what leave means. That in itself...
They don't agree with themselves.
There is a amongst themselves, right? Because that in itself tells you what the problem is. The referendum gave us a mandate to leave, but it didn't specify where we are going. And the reason why Parliament is deadlocked is that leaving and going somewhere are not the same thing. It's like three of us jump into a cab, and one of them goes...
You got loads of these, haven't you?
Yeah.
Are we going to the old house or the new house in the cab?
No, and one of them goes, let's leave. And the cab driver goes, where to? And I just say, just get it done.
Yeah.
And someone is saying... I don't,
and then at the end of it, you all charge the cab to the public purse on expenses, right?
Come on.
That's true, isn't it?
Don't be ridiculous.
Oh, sorry. That's the only true thing that's actually been said. But listen, Sam, it's delightful to speak to you as ever. Maybe next time I talk to you, you'll be in another party. You never know.